All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast. I am not Keith Glock, although he is with us. He is driving his car. I am Bill Tharp, joined via Zoom by my good friends Anthony Terranova, Gil Swenson, and I'm going to call him Mr. Hollywood because he was on TV today. Keith Glock. Keith, congratulations. Big NCAA game for you today. Give us your 30-second rundown on how your day was today.
It was very hot. I sweated a lot. I ran up and down the field quite a few times. There was not a lot for me to do. Thankfully, the boys played lacrosse, and it was legitimately a privilege to be on the game.
Awesome.
How was that?
Very good.
You nailed it. You nailed it. You had no controversy. I have to admit that we had a side chat going. We were hoping that you would be involved in a very controversial play and we would be able to get the firsthand scoop of it. But unfortunately, you nailed it today. So we tip our cap to you.
Well, see, I know that's actually a bit disingenuous. And I know that Gil really wanted me to be involved in some absolute bullshit because that would mean that I had some kind of FaceTime on cameras, which meant he could have tagged me in a lot of things and then elevated the engagement level of the pod. So,
yeah, you really let us down. But, it's okay. You let us down today. It's okay.
Sorry about it.
Never forget it. Never forget.
Well, I am no host on the level of Keith Glock, but I'm here to try and steer the ship today, get us through a recap of last week, preview a pretty short week this week, and then we got some state tournament seeding stuff to talk about, and then as usual, we got a pretty fired up top 20. I think that for the first time in a few weeks, we got some stuff to talk about at the top half of the top 20. And while we're there, let's kick it off. Boys, for the first time in program history, Chatham Cougars are the Morris County Tournament champions. Coach Scarpello and the boys get it done. I think all of us watched the game in some capacity, but Nova, I'll kick it off with you. What were your high-level thoughts on the Morris County Tournament final?
It was a great game. There was a lot of points that I think we had going into the game where they needed to neutralize face-offs. Even if they weren't, they could be below 50, but they need to be somewhere around that. Clear the ball first time and just let that offense get into their flow state. And I think all those things happened. And with the Delbarton goalie, what Delbarton goalie was going to show up. So all three of those things went in Chatham's favor for sure, and it was electric. And you kind of just got a sense that Chatham absolutely wanted this. They knew that this was an opportunity to miss one last year, and you got that sense by just watching the game with the passion from all the players on kind of every single play when they won it. The celebration from the schools and the peers and the students kind of just all encompass kind of what they were looking for and working towards. And this was definitely, I think, their main goal of the season. Obviously, they're going to have a chance to win a state championship, but I know this was certainly the number one thing that this school wanted to accomplish, and credit to them for being able to do that.
Gil, what were your takeaway from the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nova, you mentioned it last week, I believe, or Tharp it was. It wasn't on, but I was listening to the episode, and, Chatham felt like they kind of left it out there last year and had the chance to win last year, and they just looked dominant. I mean, it was a 5-goal win, a couple empty net at the end, but either way, it just felt like they were in control. Their offense was just buzzing. They shot, they scored. It was just that you felt like they were getting their shots that they wanted, and they were stinging them every time. You could kind of see it coming from a couple passes away, all right, they're going to get a look right here. And more times than not, it was going in. And I had a feeling, going into after their West Morris game and then being able to neutralize Gauss, I thought that would be something that if they could do again against Delbarton would, make a big difference. And, they proved they could do it the first time with West Morris. And, that's an area that they could have easily been dominated in both of those games. And they neutralized that and their offense capitalized. I think we knew about their offense. They had a couple kind of slow games here or there in the season, but, I didn't think this was going to be one of them. And they showed why they were one of the best in the state.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is I think Shep Boyd has immediately thrown his hat into the ring for Player of the Year. He joins that short list. He scored a goal where we were all texting each other. He kind of pulls up, pulls it near side, kind of a sidearm 3-quarter. It was sick. And then Lachlan Mahoney really did an outstanding job on Fodor for Delbarton. So for me, I think that was the part that really stood out to me is those two guys, really dominating their matchups. And like I said, Mahoney kind of erased Fodor for a lot of the game. So I was just incredibly impressed with those guys. And, like you said, Nova, this was kind of a spirit horse win for those guys. And to follow it up with a resounding win over Shawnee on Saturday. Really, really great week for Chatham. Glock, any thoughts on the game? I know, we were texting back and forth each other about the game. Any high level thoughts?
Yeah, I actually do. Outside of the fact that Gil looks like he's in prison right now, I joke because I'm about to get actually into something that is a little bit more serious. First off, congratulations to Chatham. I mean, if there were any doubts about the offensive firepower of Chatham and just at what a high level that the Cougars are capable of playing at which the Cougars are capable of playing, they erased any of those doubts in that game, and just a remarkably impressive performance. And then after that compliment, I'm now going to dump some cold water on this entire thing, because one of the things that I've learned about doing this podcast this year is that people do watch and listen, because I get a lot of comments, places where I go, hey, love the podcast, this, that, the other. So if you are a player or a coach and you're watching this and you did happen to watch the Morris County final on Big State in YouTube, and you think it's fun or funny to have a coordinated celebration where your team fires a gun, you're going to get flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct. I said it to the officials tonight in a statewide meeting that I had, that it's at best a miscalculation of what's appropriate, and at worst, it's completely ignorant to the state of affairs that we live in 2026. So if you're going to fire guns as a team, you're going to get penalized. Second thing that I'm going to tell you is, you want to score a goal and you want to make throat slashes at your fans or the opposing fans, you're going to get penalized. And I apologize that neither were penalized during the Morris County final. But I don't condone officials taking their eyes off the play or off of the players on the field, because I just don't think that's wise. However, there was coordinated celebrations up by both teams where guns were fired, and we can't have it. So if officials happen to see that, you're going to get penalized. The throat slash, I don't have an excuse. It's a bad look. It's just a bad look, and we can't have it, and it's going to get penalized. So, fantastic job by Chatham on the field in terms of the lacrosse. A less fantastic job by both teams in terms of the things that were not lacrosse-wise.
All right. Well, on a much brighter note, let's move it on to a game that probably was equally fiery. The Somerset County semifinals, the less sexy game. Bridgewater beats Bernard 16-2. In the other semifinal, we had Gill over Pingree 7-4. This game was certainly very testy. Coaches getting into it, players getting into it. And that all culminates in Gill St. Bernard's repeating as Somerset County champions, 8-6 over Bridgewater in the final yesterday at Somerville. My thoughts right off the bat: why was this game not at Torpy? The game being played at Somerville High School. It's not the same thing. We've all coached in a Somerset County final. I think we all agree that Torpy is, while it's not the It's not exactly the Taj Mahal. It's a really unique setting. It's a neutral field. So it stinks that game was not played at Torpy. But Gil, any thoughts on both the Somerset County semis and the final?
No, I didn't get a chance to watch these games, honestly, really. But just seeing the overview of it and talking to you guys, I think we all wondered where Gil was as a whole. We saw them early on with a lot of out of state. We saw some kind of back and forth results with them in state. We've had them pretty highly ranked. I think these were both, pretty solid wins for them, obviously, though, to really solidify their spot and where they're going to be moving forward.
Wrapping up the rest of the week, a game Tuesday.
Wait, stop. Hold on. The Somerset County final, I'm going to give you another high-level thing, and it's a thing that I think that all of you guys are on board with. Like, what, noon on a Saturday? Like, in the middle of the NCAA tournament, there's a lot of distractions there. We can do better than this. Like, it's something we can schedule better in the preseason. It doesn't need to be at noon on Saturday at a random neutral site. Like, how about Friday night somewhere, guys? Like, let's do this. Let's make it. Let's make this. Let's make this a time. We're in May. We're in mid-May, guys. The weather's going to be 68. 72. We get super warm nights. Like, you could get high 70s, low 80s. You'll get a big crowd. Like, we got to promote this game. We got to do better. The scouting report from the national media about when we're scheduling college games, that everything gets played at 12 o'clock on a Saturday, and we're never going to grow the game the same way. The same thing. Like, we got to do better than this. And 12 o'clock on a Saturday, on the day where the NCAA quarterfinals are getting played, it's just not. It's not the thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the Morris County final was proof positive of that. That's a Tuesday night, an absolutely electric atmosphere. So I think you're right. But again, let's wrap up the middle of the week. A game Tuesday that I think that was particularly interesting to this group, especially piggybacking the heated debate we had regarding Ocean City. Tuesday afternoon, St. Augustine 6, Ocean City 2. Nova, I know you had eyes on this game. Obviously, we had a very, very strong debate about Ocean City. They come out with a really, really strong result. Nova, like I said, I know you watched the game. Could you just give us your breakdown?
Yeah, I wanted to watch the game because that score definitely was a little bit eye-opening. I think we all expected, except for maybe Tharp, that the score would be a little bit more one-sided to the Augie's way. So obviously I wanted to jump on in and make sure I watched it. And the reality was Ocean City's goalie played out of his damn mind. Absolutely fantastic, making saves on the doorstep routinely all day long. And, I think they just couldn't clear the ball at all, Ocean City. But St. Augie's had the ball like literally 90% of the game, just continuing just to get high-level shots. I mean, I wish I could go back and probably record shots that were taken from both teams. It would be a very staggering number. But Ocean City stood tall. Their goalie, he made the saves he needed to make. And, St. Augie's still got out of there with a victory. But the score doesn't necessarily tell the full story. But, you still got to play the game. And, everything matters right now with PowerPoints and things like that. So, that 6-2 win, even though it was an Augie's favorite, certainly hurt them in their total seedings as recently Bosco has jumped them. So now it's looking like Augie's, assuming everyone, all the top seeds continue to win, Augie's might be having now to take that trip up to Bosco to seed the second seed there. So it was a pretty big game in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Also happening Wednesday, like we said, Bosco beats Bergen 16-6, taking us to a pretty action-packed Saturday. Like we said, Chatham resounding win over Shawnee 14-6, Gill beating Bridgewater. And then in two other out-of-conference games, Summit defeats Ridgewood 9-3, and Scotch Plains beats Bergen 14-9. So pretty light week in terms of overall game numbers, but really, really impressive showing. And I would be remiss to not mention Homedale also defeated Manasquan 10-7 in the short conference quarterfinals to prove that their win earlier in the season was not a fluke. Homedale over Manasquan. And in a game where our dear friend Anthony Terranova was the lead official, probably on paper the biggest game, not stature-wise, but in terms of it being a county final. Tony was the lead official on the Mercer County, the CVC tournament, no longer called the MCTs, the CVC tournament where Notre Dame beats Robbinsville 16-11. Tony, you were on the game. Glock, you were at the game watching as a supporter of Tony. You were there supporting. I know there was a special sportsmanship award handed out to Romano from Notre Dame, ended up being the winner as an award named after a former official. So, Nova, can you give us your thoughts on the game? And then, Glock, I want to give you a chance to kind of talk about that sportsmanship award, because I knew it meant a lot to you.
Yeah, it was certainly a privilege and honor for to be selected to be able to do that game and be in the position that I was selected. Thought it was a great game. Thought it was well officiated across the board with my crew, which I was happy about. But in terms of what the game was, Robbinsville was up 5-2 to start, and everything was going Robbinsville way. I'm like thinking to myself, like, okay, Robbinsville's gonna pull this out. Like everything was going this way, and then they went up 5-2, and on the next face-off, the Robbinsville kid, who the Notre Dame face-off kid is a absolute stud, but Robbinsville kid, one of the few that he won on that day, had a pinch and pop forward instead of passing at the point. Does a good little head fake and takes a shot from 6 yards away when Robbinsville was scoring at 6-on-6, pretty much getting high level looks whenever they wanted. Pegs the goalie in the chest. Goalie makes the save, picks the ball up. They hit Notre Dame on a fast break goal the other way, and you just felt the entire momentum, stadium, everything just went from there on out to Notre Dame's favor. Notre Dame won the next 9 face-offs. They scored the next 8 goals. So it was fun at first. Then Notre Dame definitely took care of business. And again, it was definitely on the back of Kenny Romano, their face-off player. He was just an absolute dog, just fighting and scrapping for everything. We weren't giving him any bailouts. He was fighting and crawling for everything. He was picking up some massive ground balls for his team, and he's definitely the the spark plug for those guys.
Kenny Romano doesn't make it easy for himself. No,
he loves to try to swim move double and triple teams and put himself in harm's way quite a lot.
I'm watching this game going, run this in space. You do not need to run between these two guys at all. But a really gritty performance by them. And also, happy to talk about Manasquan Homedale. You glossed over the fact that I was on that game. But to talk about the George Abel Award, it's a sportsmanship award we give out every year in honor of an official who passed George. Best human being that's ever walked the line. Cross official, and he just cared so much about the student athlete experience. Hey, this is fair. That's not fair. That those were words that I heard from him all the time. And just one of the most wonderful human beings that I've encountered. So upon George's passing, this award was created also because his son-in-law, Anthony Labella, was a NJILOA official and will be again, except right now he's just on hiatus, that his kids are young, and he's coaching and doing all the things that we do, and we have young kids. So Anthony was really one of the people that spearheaded this, and his family comes every year to give out the award. They did so this year, and Kenny just, boy, what a performance. And I honestly, the way that we gave the sportsmanship award out was not just because there's some research and some input that goes
Clock is
pretty bad here.
Oh, sorry. We okay?
no, you're cutting out pretty bad. So I was letting you.
No, good.
I think you're trying to make us. You're making a good point. I just was letting you know you were cutting out. So the last thing we kind of heard clearly was Kenny Romano, and we got some input from other coaches, and then you kind of cut out. So I want to let you finish your point because I think you're making a great point.
No, I love George Abel. I thought Kenny Romano played fantastically in the final, but also it was a reflection of his attitude and performance all season long, and that's why it worked.
Awesome. Well, again, congrats to Notre Dame. Congrats to Chatham. It's we're getting to the finish line, boys, and unfortunately, one of us is this is their MJ flu game, so Gil is gonna have to drop out here soon. So we want to touch on the top 20 because, as always, we curse at each other. We say really nasty things to each other.
Sunday mornings, the Lord's morning, it never starts off nice for us.
Well, you just dropped an absolute novel on our faces at 7 a.m. It was intense. How do we want to do this, guys? I think I'm going to start from 20 and work our way down because, like I kind of alluded to, there's some controversies out there, but there's actually discussion at the top.
Go 20 to 15. I think we have some discussion there. We were all pretty much lockstep from 14 to 7.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's do that, Frank, and then we'll go 1 to 6.
If any, by the way, wait, before you go, as somebody who doesn't vote in this poll, I'm going to tell you right now, if anybody thinks that these guys don't give a crap and they just throw this together, I ignore about 4,000 text messages where there's an argument about this poll every week. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. So carry on.
All right. Well, kicking us off at number 20, returning to the rankings, we have Randolph at number 20, staying put at number 19. We have Notre Dame rising up from number 20. We have Ocean City staying put at 17. We have Mountain Lakes, and dropping one spot, we have Bridgewater Raritan, and also dropping one spot, Bergen Catholic coming in at number 15. So we're at Randolph, Notre Dame, Ocean City, Mountain Lakes, Bridgewater Raritan, and Bergen, which means this week we said goodbye to St. Joe's Regional, who went 1-0 on the week and was dropped out of the rankings. I don't know why, but Gil, you weren't here last week. I will let you kick it off.
Where do you want to start, Billy? You're the host this week. We could talk. I've had Randolph ranked this whole time, in the 18 to 20 spots roughly for 3 weeks. They got a little extra support this week to get into 20. I didn't rank. I don't have my top 20 up right now, but I didn't have SJR this week. I don't think I had last week. Did I have 20 last week?
So I think my beef is more with Tony in terms of St. Joe's. Tony had St. Joe's ranked 19th last week, drops them out of his rankings totally. You had St. Joe's ranked 20th, and Randolph ranked 18th. You dropped St. Joe's out of the rankings.
So I bumped mine came from Ocean City, making it into my rankings, I think, and bumped St. Joe's out. Ocean City had a more impressive result. You made good cases for them last week. They were 21 for me last week, 22 in that mix. Playing Augies to 4 goals was impressive enough for me to move them in. So that naturally bumped St. Joe's out, who was 1-0. I think they beat a 50-something ranked team by a goal. So I'll take the Ocean City resume over the last few weeks over that. So that was my simple plug and play there.
I don't have anything to say on Randolph. We spend way too much time arguing about the 20th ranking. Nova, do you have any reason why you dropped St. Joe's, or is it just whatever?
The 6-2 win for loss to St. Augustine from Ocean kind of helped me kind of solidify by having to put them into the rankings, and then this looking and comparing some other scores, wasn't super impressed with Pingree. And then even St. Joe's Regional only winning by 1 goal to Pascack Valley was certainly not impressive to me when I was debating hard and heavy who my 20th spot should have been last week. So ultimately, I decided to go with someone else who's, winning games by a little bit better margins than by what they're supposed to be winning. Because technically, if you're going by the spread, St. Joe's Regional technically lost that game by a few goals. Where Randolph was my 21st team, and I figured that now is just the time to slip them into that position. But both those teams are right there. We're talking about 20 and 21. It's a coin flip.
The biggest beef is in the 15, 16, 17 range. I think we all agree Ocean City are on their way in. Notre Dame's kind of been floating there in that space. Bergen, Bridgewater, Lakes caused some uproar.
Well, yeah, it's because we talked about last.
Say it again. You cut out. Just you froze.
I said the Bergen, Bridgewater, Lakes combo caused some uproar in the group.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Nova and I dove really, really hard into my stance on Lakes. And I still hold true to it. For me, kind of like you talked about, I opened your eyes to Ocean a little bit. I think, you opened my eyes to Bergen a little bit. I think at the end of the day, for me, Bridgewater, has a win over Gill, has a win over Glen Ridge. And I think for me, it's like, that little trifecta. Again, I'm not trying to punt on the point. It's just I don't know how strong I feel about the order. I still think that what Ocean City has done, I have Ocean City ranked higher than all you guys again. I just think the way they've been playing, the results they have, just have clearly established them as the playing some really good lacrosse right now. But I think Bridgewater loses, they drop. Bergen goes 0-2, so they drop. But I want to hear from you. Like I said, Nova and I we kind of hashed it out. I want to hear from you. We haven't had a chance to hear really what you have to say.
Well, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point that if you guys already hammered Lakes a little bit, but like in my mind, the points you make for Bridgewater, it could be made for Lakes, where it's like you said, Lakes didn't beat anybody, so why are they ranked? And then like you're talking about Bridgewater's wins being Gill, at the beginning of the season, and who else did you just say? Glen Ridge. Lakes has the Bergen win and the Madison win recently, which when you look at lax numbers are very similar.
Well, Bergen win was from April 8th.
What's that?
Bergen win was from April 8th. So like,
okay, when
you want to compare Glen Ridge to Madison?
Bridgewater beat Gill.
I'm saying like the Gill win probably happened around the same time as the Bergen win, but I'm saying now you're comparing like Glen Ridge versus Madison. But my broader point was that like Mountain Lakes has been getting handedly beat in all of these big games. That's my main point, more than anything.
I mean, they played Bosco to 3. We were talking about a lot. So I have a lot of different numbers here because we were talking about Lakes versus Ocean City, then Lakes versus Bergen. You're saying Ocean City's playing a lot of really good lacrosse, which I think they are. And looking at all the statistics with lax numbers, we went back and forth about the plus minus, about, I think ultimately we look at it different. I think, Anthony, I think maybe we've talked about like strength of schedule. We look at it a little bit more even with losses. I look a little bit further back, I think, than you, in terms of ranking everything. Everything's weighted a little bit heavily more recently. Obviously, like the more recent games carry a little bit more weight than the older games for sure. But I still look at the full body of work. I'm not going to ignore games just because they were a month ago or 5 weeks ago, whatever it was. Like, so I'm still going to look at those games, even though it sounds like you try to not throw them out, but you just don't look at them as much. So it's like, you look at, I think lax number is very accurate these days. And again, we don't go 1 through 20 off that. alone. But when we're talking about these tight things, like Lakes is still 14-15 in there, and they still have a stronger strength of schedule. And they've, even with some blowouts, they've overperformed certain games and enough games, or played close in enough games to keep a pretty high rating. And looking at these, quality results, they've had 6, high level 90 point something results against, which combines the strength of schedule plus how they did in that game. They have 6 strong results versus Ocean City's 1. Like that was something I shared today. I know you pointed out the plus minus, that standpoint. So like there's just arguments to be had and there's different views to be had, but that's just where I see them having, 6 strong results across the course of the season, 3 in the last 10 games, looking at a more recent basis. Looking at their average points, they're pretty similar to these teams that we're talking about. So just to say like they shouldn't be ranked at all versus some of these other teams you're putting at 15, I think they're all very similar. I think they would all play close games with each other ultimately. So, none of us are saying any of these teams should be number 10 right now, but I think they all deserve to be in that mix of where they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes back to what is important to you, right? And it's like I don't pretend that Lakes started the season really well, right? They lose to Madison on opening day, but they beat Sparta handily. They beat Highlands handily. They beat Bergen. They beat Ramapo, right? So that's 4 wins right there, right? And then after that result, though, a lot of the results you're looking at are those, largely non-competitive games. And like we said, if you're looking at the plus minus, which, to me, I think, and Nova kind of alluded to it, plus minus gives you a pretty good whole picture. It tells you if you had a bad loss or if you had a bad win. I know that matters to you a little more than it does to me, right? A bad win. But when you look at the plus minus, on the season, I think this really came down to like Lakes versus Ocean more than anything. But like on the season, Mountain Lakes has 7 games where they're negative plus minus, and Ocean City only has 5 games that are negative in the plus minus. Over the past handful of games, Mountain Lakes was minus 3 and a few decimals, whereas Ocean City was plus 7 or 7 or 8 in a few decibels. So I think that, like I said, that game score ultimately is super tied into the strength of schedule, which I have 100% acknowledged. Lakes has a good strength of schedule. But again, if you schedule teams 1 through 20 and you go 0-20, you're going to have a great strength of schedule, but you still lost every game. So, for me, it just comes down to I got to see them win some of these games. So, and the Madison game, like Madison's still missing some guys. That's not full strength Madison. So, like you said, we scream at each other over what amounted to the 17th, 18th, and 20th ranked teams. So I do think that we're pretty aligned, but we're a little philosophically different there. Is that kind of sound right to you guys? You're muted, Gil.
Yeah, it's fair to say.
All right.
I just think we look at I think we both mentioned, I don't want to talk about this forever because I think there's bigger stuff ahead, but again, is Ocean played Augie's great, 6-2 is great. I'll say that. But if they're playing Delbarton, Bosco, Delbarton again, Ridgewood, Chatham, like, are they doing better? I don't know. I mean,
but my point is like Mountain Lakes just got mercy ruled by Delbarton. Like, would Ocean City get mercy ruled? Maybe, but like I just watched Mountain Lakes I just watched Mountain Lakes get mercy ruled by them anyway. A lot of these games haven't been super competitive, so it's like, well, would they have the same result? Well, they haven't been competitive, so all I can point to is their result against St. Augustine, only losing by 4 goals, is St. Augustine's second closest game of the season in games they won, right behind Seton Hall. And I would argue that there was that result, especially based on our rankings. We all have St. Augustine above, Don Bosco. that's a more impressive result than what we've seen out of Mountain Lakes lately. And that's how I look at it. And, at the end of the day, Mountain Lakes is ramping up for a state playoff run, and they're probably going to come out of Group 1 North unscathed, and then we'll see where it lands, in terms of the overall Group 1 tournament. Can we take? Are we good? Can we take a breath before we start arguing about the top five?
The next group we were pretty much in agreement with.
Yep. As Gil said, pretty status quo here. At 14, we have West Morris. 13, Gil St. Bernard. 12, CBA. 11, Westfield. 10, Ridgewood. Breaking into our top 10, again, status quo here. Number 9, Rumson. Number 8, Scotch Plains. Number 7, Shawnee. And here we come into the top 6. Coming in at number 6, dropping down from number 4, Don Bosco. Number 5, Seton Hall Prep. I think the one thing we forgot to mention, and it was an out-of-state result, was this week, Seton Hall did defeat Brunswick, who at the time was the number 1 team in the country. I believe today Brunswick finished off they won their prep tournament.
They did.
Including defeating Lawrenceville along the way. So I have to anticipate Brunswick will end their season as a top 5 team in the country. Seton Hall got a win over them. So they flip. Anything on those two flipping?
Well, Seton Hall Prep was at 5 for us last week, right?
Yeah.
So Bosco basically dropped from 4 to 6.
Ended up keep going one more because the 4 and 6 flipped essentially.
Well, I think 1 through 4 is going to be really where the conversation kicks off.
Right. So 4 and 6 flipped. SHP stayed 5. I think Bosco dropping was more about what happened ahead of, I think it's less about what happened to them, more about what the next team did.
Right. All right. So I'm gonna go from 1 down, build a little drama here. Okay. Staying at number 1, St. Augustine. Staying at number 2, Delbarton Green Wave. Staying at number 3, Summit Hilltoppers, and rising up from number 6, the Chatham Cougars. I'm gonna punt to you guys, not because I'm afraid of conflict, but because I want to hear from you guys. I had Chatham above Delbarton. You guys both had Delbarton above Chatham, which is how we ended up here. So I want to kick it off to you guys because I'm curious of your thoughts, and then I will give you my thoughts.
I'll start for 1 second, Tony, and then I know you have some similar thoughts, but we all had Augies 1. They maintained their 1 spot. We said going into this after the Chatham beat Delbarton game, this was going to be impossible no matter what. And I think I didn't argue you, Billy, with yours. I could definitely see where you came from with that. I said to Tony, I'm like, I could see Chatham at 2 or I could see him at 5. And I couldn't really see him at 3 or 4, though, the way I was working out the team. So it was like they're either jumping everybody or they're going to bump up. I think it was 2 spots from last week or 2 spots from last week. But it's like Summit's done nothing wrong. They shouldn't have to drop, but they did get beat by Delbarton. So I'm like, if I'm going to jump Chatham over Delbarton, that means Summit's dropping for no reason, essentially, because they've done nothing since then to deserve dropping. They've had some good wins. So it's like they shouldn't be dropping. Tony mentioned bumping Summit up, and then it's like, where does Seton Hall Prep go? Because they beat Delbarton as well, but Summit beat Seton Hall Prep. All these teams beat each other. I think all these teams can beat each other on any given day, I think is the point. I think 1 through 6 or 7, like any of these teams could beat each other at any point. So it's the margin here is so slim between all these teams. I think we need to acknowledge and just, not say that this is definitive by any means, but I think jumping Chatham over Delbarton, which would have been like 5 spots, I just think is extreme for 1 game. Because again, I think at least, and Anthony, you can talk next, I still look at the whole body of work, and Chatham still has those losses earlier on to, was it Seton Hall Prep and Bosco, right?
They lost to Ridgewood as well, Chatham.
And Ridgewood, right. So like we still jump Chatham ahead of Seton Hall Prep and Bosco right now because of that Delbarton win, but launching them all the way up over to 2, I get it. Again, I'm not arguing this like too heavily because I can see all sides of this argument. I could see Summit at 2. I could see Chatham at 2. I could see Seton Hall Prep at 2. But again, you go back to the whole body of work, and you see some of these losses that they had early on, Seton Hall with Westfield and Summit. Everybody, we got to look at the whole resume here. It's not going to be one head-to-head flips like it did earlier in the season. When we're 3, 4, 5 games in, that one head-to-head is obviously going to jump somebody over somebody. So to me, it was just analyzing the body of work from the beginning of the season on for all these teams. And I think that's just where it fell for me.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think for me as well, coming up with the top 6, I think I came up with three different top 6s that made sense. Then of course there's obviously going to be arguments in any type of which way why that team's not above that team or that team beat that team, however kind of way we kind of shook it. And I think just again ultimately kind of went to total body of work. I mean, honestly, I even texted the group. I don't even think there's a good argument that St. Augustine, based on their body of work, isn't number 1 compared to some of these other schools. They haven't played the same schedule as any of the 2 through 6. If we're calling a spade here, but they were just an easy one as they were a 1. There's nothing to really knock them down. But I think just total body of work. What Delby has done, who they've beaten, followed by some who they've lost to, who they've beaten. And everything else in between. Chatham has a couple losses. They're still above teams that they lost to. So we still moved them up a spot. Again, I can't take anything away from Chatham. It was an amazing week. Probably the best week in for any team in New Jersey. Granted, Seton Hall definitely has the best win. By far, in my opinion, that's a hell of a win. So shout out to those guys. But it's kind of like the same resume when you're going through and you're making a seeding or a ranking for the national championship in college. Virginia won the Virginia won the ACC, but they didn't all of a sudden get the 3rd seed. UNC still got the 3rd seed, and Virginia was still the 7th just because they beat them, and they beat them the week before. So it doesn't really necessarily mean that because someone beats someone that they get to jump them, right? That's just not how rankings, lax numbers, or anything like that works. So it's still your total body of work. And ultimately right now, if you just go through who has the most top 20 wins, who has the most top 6 wins, that's kind of ultimately where I've kind of finished my 1 through 6 scheduling out.
Can I ask you a question? Just like a genuine... I think the listeners, viewers would benefit from it, and I don't think I know the answer to it for each of you. How much does recency play into how you weight a win? Does a win right now, how much weight does that carry versus a win on, we'll use April 8th, because that was a date that Tharp had thrown out, earlier in the season?
Yeah,
well, I think it matters. I think that's why Chatham is above 2 teams that they lost to. That Barton win is a massive win. But again, I think Gil alluded to it. We're not going to move you 6 spots up over teams that are deserving above Summit, things like that, just because, and Delbarton being Summit was not that long ago by any stretch of the imagination. So all these things kind of had to play into a factor within that. So again, I think there are some things that kind of get thrown in there based on recency. And again, that's a big time win. And that's why of any team in the top 12, they're the only team that moved up. Bosco was the only team that moved down in our top 12. So I think that's kind of where, that win matters. It's a massive deal. But just like I said, Virginia didn't become the number 3 seed and the number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament because they won the ACC. Their whole body of work was judged, and I think that's kind of how I want my top 20 to be as well as the season's literally about to hit the cutoff point in 2 days.
Yeah. So I think for me, so what I ended up doing was I went, St. Augustine 1, Summit 2, Chatham 3, Delbarton 4. And I think for me, it's really hard because it's like, on one hand, I acknowledge the season that Delbarton has had, right? Highlighted by, win over Summit, win over Westfield, win over Don Bosco, really impressive win over Ridgewood. But I think, what I said in the group to these guys was, it just doesn't sit right with me. Not that sounds too harsh, but it's like it's a tough pill to swallow, Delbarton losing pretty comfortably, right? This wasn't a 1-goal overtime game. This was a, comfortable result. And I think that, Chatham has, a resume that is comparable, right? So they have a dominant win over Shawnee, a decent spread win over Delbarton. They smashed West Morris, destroyed Bergen, comfortably beat Lakes, destroyed Rumson, comfortably beat Westfield. So at the end of the day, right, the big outlier is Delbarton beat Summit, whereas Chatham hasn't had the chance to play them. So I think that those results are super comparable, that, it's not inappropriate to, move Chatham over them, especially when you couple, Chatham really, really handily defeating a top 7 team in Shawnee on Saturday. So, for me, I think the recency stuff really matters because, at this point, right, we're looking at May 12th compared to, it's April 29th, right? It's 2 weeks ago. So it's not, like Nova said, it's not like it was a month and a half ago. I didn't feel good about it. It's putting Delbarton at 4 wasn't like, oh man, this feels great. But I think that, Chatham clearly earned it. But, we see that's why we do the top 20 how we do it, right? We always got to work together and kind of add up stuff as we go. So that's how we ended up with our top 20. Any other high level top 20 thoughts, guys, or we feel good about where we're at with that?
That works for me.
Gilly boy, are you peacing out?
Yeah, I'm peacing out.
All right, man. Feel better.
Adios.
All right, that's gonna lead us into. We got two more things to really talk about. One's going to be pretty quick, and I think one, Nova, I'm really excited to talk through with you. But looking at this week's coming games, as you may or may not know, the cutoff for the state tournament is Tuesday. So any result through Tuesday will count to power points and lax numbers. After that, your cutoff tournament will be seeded on Thursday. So by this Thursday, we will have state tournament brackets. But looking ahead to it, on Monday, we have Notre Dame versus Haddonfield. On Tuesday, we have a busy day. We have Summit versus Bergen. We have a rematch, West Morris versus Chatham. And we have our Shore Conference semifinals, Homedale versus CBA, Southern versus Rumson. Nova, any of those games really stand out to you as high-level games?
All of them, really. I mean, we're coming down to crunch time where, these last points for some of these schools, Monday, Tuesday matter. And then it's tough after that where you don't know what you're going to get. It's past the cutoff date, how serious your team's going to take it, who they're going to play, everything else in between. So it's really kind of tough to see what's going on. But all eyes, I think, for me coming this upcoming week are going to be on that Shore Conference.
Yeah. I mean, Southern and Rumson was a 1-goal game last time, so it'll be interesting to see if Rumson's able to create some separation. Southern's on a bit of a slide right now. But also on Tuesday, and it sounds like this is a game that got a lot more interesting. We have Don Bosco Prep and Gill St. Bernard's in a game that sounds like it's going to be played out of state, to be played with a shot clock. I know that there's something that we talked about earlier this year with Gill playing St. Augustine at Wagner. I know that we didn't say too much about it because It's kind of an unknown right now. It seems like a pretty big gap in terms of how do I want to put this? In terms of monitoring it, I guess I'll say. But Noah, do you have any thoughts on this, or should we just kick it to the rest of the week?
Yeah, we'll just kick to the rest of the week. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm all for it. I want teams to play with shot clock. They want to play with shot clocks. So, credit to them if they're going to be able to, if both teams want to find that site and do what they got to do.
Yep. On Wednesday, a game that Mr. Terranova will be officiating. We have Delbarton and St. Augustine, a game that I'm really interested in because I have no idea who's going to show up that day. It is after the cutoff. It is after PowerPoints and everything. So it's a game that on paper is really sexy. It's really exciting, but who knows what we're going to get out of those coaches. As Nova alluded to, St. Augustine is right now the 3rd seed on lax numbers. I don't think anything's going to be able to change about that. Maybe if Gil beats Don Bosco or it's a competitive game, maybe. So you are looking at a Delbarton St. Augustine state final potentially. Nova, I'm not going to ask for you to offer insight. I know you're on the game, so this is more of me just spouting what's on the top of my head. I'm very curious. Leading us into Friday, Gil St. Bernard's takes on Seton Hall. It's kind of been a yearly tradition for Gil to play some of these top-level powerhouses at the end of the season. Pingree takes on Ramapo in a state playoff warm-up. And on Saturday, currently the only game listed on NJ.com on Saturday, Mountain Lakes versus Bridgewater. These are games that are, essentially tune-ups for the state tournament. I'm curious if all of them get played. Nova, you're a coach. Sometimes these games get put on the schedule and then get canceled for whatever reason. So it'll be interesting to see if those games do get played, and if they are played, what the results kind of look like.
Agreed. Well said.
And that kicks us to my science project I've been working on. So like we alluded to, the state tournament cutoff is on Tuesday. And as we know, or unless you've been living under a rock, this is the last year that lax numbers will be used to seed the state tournament. It's not 100% clear what the seeding criteria will be. We know it's going to be some combination of PowerPoints combined with committee, combined with history of the program, we've been told. But it made me want to sit down and look at a few things. First off is the difference in lax numbers and PowerPoints in terms of, particular teams. Like we said, the tournament this year will be seeded with lax numbers. Next year, it's going to essentially be seeded probably by PowerPoints. And then from there, looking at teams who are currently on the outside looking in, so teams that are below the 16 threshold on PowerPoints and the 24 spot in PowerPoints for non-public. And then who are the spot stealers? And those spot stealers or bid stealers, if this was the March Madness tournament, those are teams that are ranked below 16 or 24 and are stealing the bid of a team that in a traditional year would make the tournament via lax numbers. Nova, I sent you the list beforehand. We'll go kind of group by group, but was there anything that really shocked you? Was there any high-level thoughts that you had, just kind of looking through the document?
No, I mean, again, it's the same conversation that I think we really hammered last year on the pod. And, I was like, we got to give it time. This year, they're like, we tweaked the formula a little bit, we moved some things around. And, even before the season started, guys, I was like, we're going to wait this out before we kind of make this a big deal on the pod again, because people don't really want to hear it again. So again, it's kind of like the same things that we saw last year. There's really not much difference. Those out-of-state stuff is really affecting, this marker. The fact that there's no good losses at all is I think the biggest harm that this type of PowerPoint system does. And you're already seeing it based on, the emails that we get from coaches, as well as people are trying to now manipulate the system, find games of teams that they can beat that have 10, 12, 13 wins so that they can shoot themselves up in the rankings so that they can even make the playoffs in some cases. And again, it's there, it's available. So credit to those, schools that want to do that. I would do what you got to do to make the playoffs as well when it's there's certainly nothing wrong by doing that. So I think that's going to be something that you see next year. You're going to see just more teams schedule some more cupcake games. So, I mean, for me, Art didn't really touch on this on the email, but for my biggest example right now is Washington Township technically has more PowerPoints than Seton Hall Prep. Like, Seton Hall Prep is the sixth ranked team in the state on lax numbers, and Washington Township's all the way at 40. In lax numbers. That's a massive gap. And technically they have more PowerPoints because they have more wins, but the strength of schedule is apples and oranges. And then at the same time, look, we can see them just with the level of teams that, Seton Hall and the level that they're at. So that's kind of where I think that the biggest issues rise from. Again, like we're talking, if some teams are getting out because they're only winning 3 games, like, it is what it is. So be it. There's ways to counteract that, and we know that it's happening. So if you got to, be ready to have a couple openings at the end of the season and try to find some of those teams that, have either gone a head start on finding some cupcake wins or things, of that nature. Find a team that has, 10, 12, 13 wins. Because again, you don't need many of them to kind of find yourselves within those playoff system, as not a lot of groups have a butt ton of teams, but there definitely is some serious issues, some serious flaws, and it will mostly impact the non-public seeding. Some of the seedings in the other groups honestly aren't that bad. There's certainly some serious issues, with teams that should be the number 1 seed that are like the 3rd seed, or the 4th seed, but it's not as bad in the public groups as it is in non-public, which is definitely a disaster. You're talking about a potential state championship game in the quarterfinal round. So, there's definitely some things that, need to, hopefully be addressed a little bit, moving forward.
Darb, can I add something here?
Absolutely.
I had a thought, and it represents a mind changing for me of something that I think I said on the pod early in the season about why I would say that it would be unrealistic for teams to potentially abandon their affiliation with the NJSIAA, and that might have just been even in our group chat. But Seton Hall Prep beating Brunswick the other day, and then we had a bit of a laugh behind the scenes because I officiated Jackson and Marlboro the other day, and it was a great game. Nothing against those two teams, but I don't think that anybody would look at either of those two programs and say they would be competitive in a head-to-head game with Seton Hall Prep. But entering the game late this past week, Marlboro had more PowerPoints than Seton Hall Prep if we were doing a just top to bottom PowerPoints list.
It has changed since then, for sure. But yes, it was
right. But we're close enough to the end of the season where like that was like, wow, okay, like we're still kind of here right now, And I also understand that like that the final PowerPoints list is the one that matters. But you guys as coaches also have to predict. Like Tharp, I know you were scrambling this week to try to find a game to, put your kids in the best position to be able to compete in the postseason, which I think any good coach would want to do, that kind of thing. So it got me to reconsidering my thoughts about would a team at the top end of the food chain consider leaving the NJSIAA and its affiliation. And I don't know that they could do it in just one sport. And so this is just me spitballing here. But there's certainly you would become ineligible for the state tournament if you do not play a certain percentage of your games against in-state opponents. So maybe the question is the same. Would you really care if you were Seton Hall Prep and you were ineligible for the non-public tournament if that meant that because your school, obviously that is like you have to pay tuition to go to the school. And if one of the things that you would use to attract high level players to your school is that you play a very national schedule, and the only reason you would play less of a national schedule is so that you could be eligible for the New Jersey tournament, which if the tournament itself was a bit bastardized by the PowerPoints, would that matter as much to you? Because you could potentially overcome that with the strength of the rest of your national schedule while still playing. Like now, all of a sudden, you would become, like, let's say Seton Hall was going to play in a year like this. You'd play Summit, you play Scotch Plains, you'd play, insert the other top public schools here or the other top NJSIAA schools. And all of a sudden, you would become like an out-of-state opponent because you just didn't play enough in-state opponents to be eligible for the state tournament. But would that matter to you? Because if you're a tuition-based school and you're attracting kids based on that, like it's much more in question for me right now. Because like that win for Seton Hall Prep, I'm sorry, that's a huge win. That's a huge win. So, like, it's just food for thought. I don't even know that I believe what I just said right now, but like, it was just my thought process in the middle of the week. And I'm like, man, all right, I'm considering this a lot more than I was maybe a month and a half ago.
I think for me, my only pushback would be like, at that point, you're really looking at like 4 schools, right? It's like Delbarton, it's Seton Hall, it's Bosco, and it's St. Augustine, right? I think those are the only 4 schools that realistically have, and even St. Augustine, I would not say has been a power on the level of those other schools for quite as long. You know what I mean? Like, I think St. Augustine is very, very good, but I think that, even, Coach Valor would be like, whoa, we're not leaving the NJSIAA. But, I think that it gives the kids something to play for. And that might trump, any national schedule. Like this year, I mean, Delbarton, specifically Delbarton and Seton Hall, who haven't they really played? By going out to Notre Dame, Delbarton was able to play Culver and Western, or I think one of them played Western Reserve. They played a team from out in California. So I think right now they're kind of finding that perfect balance. But I agree, Glock. It's like, and this goes back to, and this is certainly to not go down this rabbit hole, but this goes back to why there needs to be separation even within non-publics, right? Like, because even within the non-public world, it's 2 totally different worlds. But again, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole because
again, just the last point to add, and when we wrap this up, is so beating the number 1 team in the country, like amazing, incredible. That they got less PowerPoints than when Haddon Township beat Cedar Creek. Like, there just needs to be something that's better in place for out of state, in state, and I agree. I think they're, if they want to do that and they want to find their Catholic league, they want to join the Prep Nationals. There's a lot of other sports and way more things behind the scenes, that matter in that regard. I think ultimately they're going to stick with it, and if they end up, if Seton Hall is the 6th seed because they're playing an out of state schedule, they're going to suck it up and fight through that and let us see another day. And they're going to be like, well, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And if we got to do, we got to go through Bosco and Delbarton to do it instead of just, Bosco and, Bergen, for example, for this year, then so be it. But again, I think our job on this podcast is to try to find that fairness, find the thing that makes sense for all teams and reward those teams from the top of the echelon to the bottom as well, so that everyone is has the same opportunities, whether they can recruit the best players around the area or not.
Right, but I look at that and I go, because I look at that and I say, yeah, you're right about everything you said, but because like Tharp, you said, who else would they play? And it's like, well, I don't know the answer to that question, because now, like, remove 2 or 3 of the schools that they play so that they can be eligible because of the in-state opponents, like the number of in-state opponents that they have to play. And let's say you remove those, like, I don't know what the number is. I'm going to say 3 for the sake of argument. Like, whoever those 3 teams are where it was the most disparate result. And now Seton Hall or Delbarton or Bosco or Augs is able to add 4 of these national teams that are fantastic, that they are certainly going to be relevant with. Like, I would say, oh, who haven't they played? Well, maybe these 3 other teams that they haven't played. And like, but on the backside, to Nova's point, it's like, we want to be as fair to everybody as we can. But to me, the integrity of the bracket, like Seton Hall Prep this year, like as of the other day, Nova, when you and I were talking, Seton Hall Prep was the 9 seed. Like, and I get it, it's not the final bracket, but we're
they're only up to number 7. They haven't gone up much.
Right. Like now all of a sudden the bracket is like kind of screwed. Like we want the best games to be the last games. And like if Seton Hall Prep is the number 7 or the number 9 seed, that means that they're gonna play somebody earlier than they should. And that stinks for the bracket. So to everybody's point, and to bring this back full circle, we have to figure out a way to tweak the PowerPoints because it's coming, and I honestly don't think that tweaks will be made unless like somebody raises a fuss. So like, and I don't know that our podcast is the fuss. Our podcast might be the nudge that certain people that, you know, that would have a voice to tell the state, hey, you're going to catch a lot of flack unless you fix this. You know, and I'm probably getting in trouble for this because I am technically an employee of the state because I'm the state rules interpreter. But like at the end of the day, like I'm in this, I'm ultimately on the side of the NJSIAA in that I know they also believe that the best games should happen at the end of the season. So if we can figure out a way to fix this, I know they're open to fixing it. But they got to be motivated to fix it, and we have to have the answer. So, all that said, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Glock, I kind of had that thought, you know, as I was doing this, of maybe this could be an advocacy for change because, you know, like Nova said, these numbers aren't crazy, but some of these numbers are crazy in terms of, and it goes beyond, you know, it goes beyond the non-publics, you know, in terms of, you know, the chasm between lax numbers and PowerPoints. So Nova, look, did you have something to?
No, I mean, again, the public rankings aren't really that bad. There's definitely a couple instances, you know, like Madison's a 5 seed right now. They'll play Rumson, you know, in a semifinal. Again, it's not that far off where, you know, Verona's a 3 seed, you know, who lost to Livingston, but they just have a lot of, you know, they're 14-1, they have a lot of wins. You know, I think 2 days ago I looked, I think Morristown, it switched now, but Morristown was the 4 seed according to PowerPoints. And so they would have played Shawnee in the semifinals. And then Shawnee would have had, I think, like Northern Burlington or something like that in the sectional final. Which is, you know, you're talking about the 6th seed in lax numbers to the 82nd seed in lax numbers, something, you know, something drastic like that. So there's definitely some cases that are very close. And again, next year when coaches are really hammering home and really dialed in and focused on getting those wins and those PowerPoints, you know, towards the end of the year, that you could, you know, one game could vastly shift. You get a team that has 14 wins. At the end, like the last day, you're talking about 30 points, 33 points in a PowerPoint, and that you can get a massive jump because it's just accumulation of your top, you know, 12 games.
Yeah, but is that good for the sport? Like all of a sudden, we're finding a team that has a lot of wins, so that we can get 34 points versus like that team not scheduling another maybe top 10 team in the state. Because it's going to be a great game. It's going to get their kids better. It's going to get their kids more exposure. Like, I think we all know the answer to that, you know?
We all know the answer, but the reality is, as we stated, good coaches are going to find ways to get their teams in the best position possible, and I cannot knock them at all whatsoever if that's how the system is going to be used, and if there is no change, that's what they're going to do. I don't agree that it's right, and obviously we're advocating that it needs to be changed. But if it's not, it's you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, crash course reminder. To qualify for the state tournament, you need to be within the top 16 teams on PowerPoints. And this can all be found on NJ.com. There's a tab up top, PowerPoints. You can see everything. Top 16 teams qualify. From there, those 16 teams are seeded. The way the state tournament is seeded is using lax numbers. And as we've said, beginning next year, no more lax numbers. So that is to say, and also one thing I will say too, is we all have seen this every year. Some team is going to opt out of the postseason. So when I say a team is not qualified, there's a good chance they might sneak in because a team opts out. Doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong, but I just want to be very clear that this is not finalized. Maybe a coach hears this and they go check and they're like, oh, shoot, can I find a Hail Mary game today or tomorrow? So like I said, I there is a part of me that hopes that this opens some eyes. But we'll kick it off with 1 South. And for me, what I tried to highlight was were teams where there was more than 5 spots difference between their lax numbers ranking and their PowerPoint ranking. I thought 5 was a pretty big gap. And so, Nova, I'll go through the list, and then if you have any thoughts, we'll hash it out, and then we'll move on. Does that sound good?
Yeah, for the sake of time, I probably won't have many thoughts at all.
That's fine. All right, 1 South, Haddonfield, lax numbers, is the number 2 team. In PowerPoints, they would be the 10 seed. Verona in lax numbers would be the 10 seed. In PowerPoints, they would be the 3rd seed. Berners would be the 7 seed in lax numbers. In PowerPoints, they are the 12th seed. Shore Regional would be the 9th seed in lax numbers. In PowerPoints, they're the 14th seed. Are not qualified teams, and again, these are teams that are ranked in the top 16 on lax numbers, but not in PowerPoints. Governor Livingston and Del Val, and our bid stealers are New Egypt and Rutherford. So again, those are teams that are outside the top 16 on lax numbers, but are qualifying for the state tournament because of their rating on PowerPoints. Anything jump out to you in that group, Nova?
Yeah, obviously Haddonfield being the 20th ranked team in lax numbers, and being a 10th seed, in PowerPoints, when they have a legitimate chance to be in the finals, let alone win the Group 1 South.
Yeah, I agree. Catastrophe. All right, 1 North. Mountain Lakes is the lax numbers number 1 team. In PowerPoints, they are the number 3 team. Newton is the lax numbers number 5 team. They are the PowerPoints number 1 seed. Ramsey, the lax numbers 2 seed. PowerPoints 8 seed. Kinnelon, the lax numbers 7 seed. PowerPoints 12 seed. Lakeland would be the lax numbers 13 seed. In PowerPoints, they are the 6 seed. Pequannock High School, the lax numbers 9 seed. In PowerPoints, they would be a 16 seed. Westwood, in lax numbers, they are the 12 seed. And in PowerPoints, they are the 7 seed. Not qualified is Glen Rock, who would actually be the 8 seed and hosting, and Pascack Hills. And the 2 bid stealers are Park Ridge and Saddlebrook. Anything from that group?
I mean, you have Newton, the 85th ranked team in lax numbers, as the number 1 seed, over Mountain Lakes, who's the 15th seed. I don't think much more needs to be said there.
Block, I saw you flipped on your camera. Do you have anything to add?
No, that was it. I turned my camera off so that I could eat a piece of a Snickers bar, if I'm being transparent.
Sounds good.
Satisfied.
All right, we're heading to 2 South. Cedar Creek would be the lax number. Cedar Creek, the lax numbers 9 seed, number 4 in PowerPoints. Seneca, the lax numbers 6 seed, PowerPoints 13th seed. Delran would be the lax numbers 13th seed, PowerPoints the 7 seed. Not qualified is Triton High School, and the bid stealer is Ewing High School. I think this one's pretty bleak, Nova. Can we move on?
Yes.
All right. In 2 North, we have Cranford would be the lax numbers 4 seed, the PowerPoints 12 seed. Pascack Valley, the lax numbers 5 seed, PowerPoints the 10 seed. Mendham would be the 8 seed in lax numbers, and hosting in PowerPoints, they're the 15 seed. Gets a little wonky here. West Milford would be the lax numbers 11 seed. They are the 4 seed in PowerPoints. Old Tappan is the lax numbers 12 seed. They are the 3 seed. Paramus, Glock's favorite team in New Jersey, the lax numbers 15 seed in PowerPoints. They would be the 9 seed. And Riverdale, the lax number 16 seed, barely squeaking in. They are the 5 seed in PowerPoints. Not qualified. 2 big teams, West Essex and Somerville, currently on the outside looking in. The bid stealers are Vernon and Ocean Township. And Ocean Township is the 8 seed on PowerPoint. So they are outside the top 16 on lax numbers. They would be hosting a playoff game with PowerPoints. Nova, anything in 2 North?
Yeah, I mean, you got old Tappan, who's, an 87 seed, the potential to, host multiple home games in the playoffs. West Milford is not far behind, but I shout out some of these guys. But again, it's just a combination of, if you just get a lot of wins, no matter who it's against, you're going to be in a much better shape than teams that are 500, but the teams that they're losing to are very, very good.
Yes, I agree 100%. 3 South again,
West
pretty
Essex
bleak.
is 20 spots ahead of what would be the three seed, and they're out of the playoffs because they only have 4 wins.
Yeah, that one's tough. 3 South, pretty bleak. Northern Burlington, as you alluded to, would be the 5 seed on lax numbers. They are currently the 2 seed. Not qualified currently is Central Regional, and our spot stealer is West Windsor Plainsboro North. Shout out Coach Patron. I'm just going to take the liberty to move on. In 3 North, we have Middletown South, the lax numbers 10 seed, the PowerPoints 5 seed. Really, really spicy group of not qualified teams here, guys. Currently not qualified for the state playoffs. Ridge High School, Tenafly High School, North Hunterdon, and Milburn. Our 4 bid stealers, Mount Olive, Middletown North, Nutley, and Fairlawn. I was stunned when I saw Ridge would not qualify for the playoffs right now. Stunned.
I did not know that as well. That is pretty wild.
I think they are the current 8 seed on lax numbers. And again, some of these teams at the back end, you think there's a good chance they might opt out. But man, could you imagine a world without Ridge in the state playoffs? That would be unfathomable.
Sitting at 8, no.
Yeah, the crazy part about this is that I've had some conversations at the state level, and my question is, we're promoting potentially not scheduling competitive games at the expense of PowerPoint grabbing, and the answer that I got was, well, at the end of the day, you got to win games. And that when you say that, it's that sounds right. You should win games to do this, which is certainly true on some level. But you play a lot of great teams, you're going to win less games. It's just how it goes. We're beating a dead horse.
No, but Glock, I think this needs to be the and I think Ridge is the perfect team because Coach Marsh, Hall of Famer, name a guy more respected in New Jersey lacrosse than Ken Marsh. Could you imagine right now?
And they almost lost to Pinger in overtime. They almost beat Haddonfield the other day.
Like,
They just
so right
haven't
now
got those ones, but they're what 46 on lax numbers right now. I mean,
Yeah,
you
they're
rattle off teams in the 100s that are going to be in the playoffs in their groups.
so listen, right now you're looking at
Now, maybe here's the call. All right, Ken Marsh, you need to pick up the phone and call Rich Shello, your former athletic director, who has close ties with the NJSIAA, and you got to say, look, people are going to start raising holy hell if we don't, because whatever isn't great. No one's arguing that the concept of going to PowerPoints is wrong, because you don't want to rely on a third party entity. Like, that makes complete sense to anybody that has a brain. But it's just whatever has to get tweaked. So
Right.
Ken, call Rich.
well, and the other piece of it too is Glock. I agree with you. And last year, right, the biggest team hurt was Randolph, but they were 3-13, right? So everyone was like,
It has some pretty bad losses as well.
And it's similar to like the situation Glen Rock's in this year, right? Very similar. Like Glen Rock, I think, is 2-12, 2-13, but they would be the 8th seed. But it's like, come on, man, you know what I mean? But yeah. Ridge is 8-8. Ridge is a 500 team, and we were telling a story earlier this year. There was a team. It might have been, I can't remember, but there was a team that we were talking about it was Chatham. Chatham was under 500, made this, ended up making the state final in Group 3 or whatever it was that year. Like, you are taking that opportunity away from Ridge. But again, like, listen to this. So you got Ken Marsh from Ridge. You got Jamie Lovejoy from Somerville. You got Schwindel from West Essex. You got Votto from Glen Rock, right? These are the coaches who are being impacted. Those are some guys that have some real pull in the state of New Jersey as well. Like, when we talk about
what would Hunter Central be? Do you have any idea off the top of your head?
They're out too. I haven't.
I know, but I'm saying, like, would they be in it on lax numbers?
No, they're out. Oh yeah, and lax numbers, yes.
Oh, Bergalito as well. Throw them in.
Yeah. Yep, but I just didn't get there yet. Like,
I know. It's just like you were just naming off, elite coaches. So,
that's 5 like Hall of Fame, like, not Hall of Famers, right? But like Marsh and Vergar, right? Like, those are like, and they're gonna get screwed by this. They're gonna get screwed. Anyway, so again, like, this needs to be the wake-up call, guys. Like, this is not okay. Going down to South 4, Kingsway is the lax numbers 2 seed, the 6 seed in power points. Eastern, the 5 seed in lax numbers, the 13 seed in power points. Monroe is the lax number 7 seed, the 3 seed on power points. And Jackson is the 14 seed on lax numbers, 9th in power points. We have 2 not qualified teams, Cherry Hill East and Rancocas Valley, with the bid stealers being Marlboro and Egg Harbor. Group 4, Montgomery is the lax numbers 11 seed, power points 6 seed. Bergen Tech, the lax number 16 seed, the power points 7 seed, hosting a playoff game. Passaic Tech, the lax numbers 15 seed, hosting a playoff game as the power point 8 seed. Columbia, the lax numbers 8 seed, is the 13th seed. Not qualified, Hunterdon Central, Parsippany Hills, and Phillipsburg, thanks to bid stealers Clifton, West Orange, and North Brunswick. And finally, non-public, Seton Hall Prep, the lax numbers 3 seed, 7 seed in power points. St. Augustine, the lax numbers 4 seed, power points 1 seed. Red Bank Catholic, the lax numbers 21 seed, the power points 8 seed. Newark Academy, the lax numbers 19th seed, power points 15th seed. This one hits close to home. Rutgers Prep, the lax numbers 14 seed, currently the power points 24th team. St. John Vianney is the lax numbers 29th team, currently the 18th seed in power points. And Wilberforce, America's team, the lax numbers 30th seed, power points in 19th. We have 5 teams not qualified in non-public. St. Peter's, Immaculata, Oratory, Bishop Eustace, and Holy Spirit. Our bid stealers are St. John Vianney, Wilberforce, Princeton Day, Paramus Catholic, who's the 35th team, and DePaul. So, guys, I think last year it felt like not a big deal. Like I said, I think I could count on one hand the number of teams affected. Off the top of my head, I didn't do the math. We're at 20 something teams directly impacted by PowerPoints this year. This is the call to arms. We need to change. We could be better than this. Again, it should not have to happen. It should not have to depend on guys, not getting the opportunity. Because let's look at Ridge, right? I really respect Ken Marsh. I think the world of him and his program. So, Glock, to your point, here's Ridge's out-of-conference games. Notre Dame, Ocean City, Northern Highlands, Haddonfield. 0-4 in those games. Okay? But 4 very, very, very high-quality teams. Why would Ridge ever want to not schedule those teams? Let's look at Hunterdon Central. Out of conference. Wayne Valley, a county tournament finalist. They're not as impressive as Ridge. I apologize, Coach Ferg. But my point stands on Ridge, right? I think Ridge is the poster child this year. If you believe in our sport, this is unacceptable. And I
actually take back everything I said, because it turns out Montgomery is going to benefit from the PowerPoint system, as is St. Peter's Preparatory School, my alma mater. So
no, St. Peter's is boned.
St. Peter's is out.
They're out.
They got boned. All right, I got mixed emotions again. I thought I was back all in on the PowerPoints, and now I'm not.
But Montgomery is still making the playoffs. They're just on the road in round 1 instead of home.
Well, it's just me trying to be a homer. That's all.
I mean, listen, we have sung the praises of Coach Thigpen on this podcast. This is a Montgomery positive podcast. But we need to do right by everybody. This is our call to arms. We were damn close in the shot clock, but like Glock's right, guys. Like, this is not okay. We have to be better than this. And he's right. The state's not going to change, right? They're not going to change in a vacuum, in a silo. Everything that he is saying is correct. Not depending on a third party totally makes sense. But, man, we got to find a better way.
Look, and it annoys me as somebody who I hate complaining about something without bringing a solution to the table. But I'm also smart enough to know what I don't know. And I know that I don't know the mathematics.
Right.
I spent some time with the folks from Lax Numbers on the phone last year to try to understand it better. And I asked some really probing questions, and we got eventually to a point where we started talking about regressive analytics and mathematics, and I said, okay, we have to stop now because I don't understand this, and not because I don't want to understand it, but because I was an English major in college. Okay, so right. That is not me trying to be funny. I am dead ass serious that we got to a point where I said I no longer understand what you're talking about. And honestly, that probably is the point that the state has. Hey, we couldn't recreate this, so we can't rely on somebody else for it. But I just don't know what the answer is mathematically to the PowerPoint system. So if there's somebody out there that has the answer mathematically of how we account for strength of schedule losses, to be able to account that into PowerPoints, that is ultimately, I'm correct in saying that, right, guys? That's what we're looking for, is a way to account for strength of schedule losses.
Right.
Yeah, and right. Having close games with those strength of schedules. Yep.
Right. And I don't think any of us on this podcast aren't have a solution to it, which I despise. because I am a guy that like I want to bring you a solution. When I tell you that there's a problem, I don't want to just bitch about a problem. I want to bring you a solution, and I can tell you I'm not smart enough to do it, and that's a problem. But again, I just don't know how to fix it.
Right. Well, on that super positive note, if you're a math guy, DM the New Jersey Lacrosse podcast, and we'll get you set up with trying to solve the world's problems. Guys,
that's serious though, right, Tharp? I mean, like,
no, I agree.
Like, there's got to be people out there that like are smarter than us about this. That like might have a potential solution. So we're looking for it.
Yeah. Listen. If nothing else, and I'm gonna toot Glock's horn for a second. Glock can at least get this in front of the right people. We're not promising anything, but we have a way of getting it at least in front of someone's face. And they might tell us kick rocks like they did last year, but if nothing else, the right people can see it. All right, guys. This has been a really long podcast. This has been fun.
Surprise.
Thank you, guys. And as we send you off into the last week of the regular season and into Memorial Day, we wish you health and safety, and everyone get ready for the postseason. And thank you guys for listening. And gentlemen, have a great rest of your week. Glock, congratulations again on your NCAA success. And thank you guys for joining us this week. For Gil Swenson, Anthony, Terranova, Keith Glock, I'm Bill Tharp. Thank you guys. God bless America. God bless our troops. USA.